Yeah, it's cool. I gotta get situated anyway.
Speak loud into the mic, Cam. I'm gonna carry it all the way to the back.
Yeah.
Oh, assistance. I got you.
Alright. Cool. Just do it now, I don't know it again.
No, this is the good shit.
Yeah.
Here you go. Turn on the on switch, would you?
Yeah, got it. Woo! What's up? Yo, you guys ready to hear some fucking jokes and shit? Alright, cool. Let's see what we got here. What's the difference between meat and fish? If you beat your fish, it dies. Alright, woo! So we got poor, first bit is called poor outsourced customer service and making up whatever I'd like. So I work for a lodging company, and so we privatized Airbnb your house or whatever, and basically we have outsourced customer service after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is super convenient because that's when people check in. So literally these people, these folks in the call center, they have to answer people's grievances, and then they send me a ticket I get on my phone, and then I get to make up whatever I want for them to tell the guests. So they're just like, this guest is complaining that the air conditioning doesn't work. And I said, well, just tell them that it's 10 degrees outside so they can just open their window. It turns out there was a little bit of a translation barrier. So what they meant was the heat doesn't work. So this poor person in Sri Lanka had to call my guest back and tell them that the local guy said, since the heat didn't work, they could go ahead and open a window. So I'm sure they were pretty stoked on that, just like, well, fuck me then. But it's kind of funny sometimes because everything comes across, and I'm not trying to language shame people. I'm sure English is their third language or whatever, and they're really doing the Lord's work for $7 an hour overseas where they're sitting there. But it just comes across and it's all broken English in the ticket. And so I just started responding to it last year in the same format that it comes across. So it'll say guest saying dishwasher not work. And so I just reply to that, sending repairman hopefully tomorrow fix. Yeah, so that's that bit. The next one is called mean nicknames in my phone. So life is more fun if you call your money Luke. But life is also more fun if you put everybody you work with in your phone as mean nicknames. So one of my friends that I work with is always complaining about how much money we make. So I put him in my phone as really poor Zach, or RPZ. I also put the main customer service line that calls me in my phone as retarded Indians. So that goes over great. Yeah, everybody's got a mean nickname in my phone. Let's see, what else we have? My friend Jake, we were in a parking garage, and he said to me, Mike, sometimes low-key, I feel like I don't respect women. And I was like, come on, man. It's just us two here. You don't have to modify that shit with words like sometimes and low-key. So he's in my phone as sometimes low-key Jake. Yeah, so this is probably the primary reason. I mean, there's many reasons, but this next story is the primary reason I'm definitely fucking going to hell. So, when my parents were out of town, oddly enough, my little brother was having spinal cord surgery down in Denver, and so they left me alone for 2 weeks over the Thanksgiving holiday of my junior year in high school. And they left me a bunch of money, but I immediately spent it all on weed. So what I had to do was figure out how I could get more money so I could get more weed. So I called my friends up and I'm like, hey guys, I got this idea so we can get a bunch of money and buy weed with it, but you might find it a little bit sketchy. And they were like, well, Mike, all your plans are kind of sketchy, but like, why don't you break it down for me? And I'm like, so I got this super crunk wheelchair in the basement. It's like the one with the individually adjustable legs. Like, I mean, there's a lot of wheelchairs in my basement because my little brother's in a wheelchair. But like, we picked the extra crippled wheelchair with all the adjustments and like the individual leg braces and stuff. And I'm like, so we'll just go door to door in the neighborhood adjacent to mine, and we'll push one of us in the wheelchair, and we'll say, we're raising money for the Adaptive Sports Club for Windsor High, which is the town adjacent to mine that is by where I lived. And so I made this printout on the computer, and it said like, it had like a clip art of like a wheelchair next to a ping pong table, and it said Windsor High Adaptive Sports Club. And then I made up that like there was this golf course where it was going to take place. It was called Pelican Lakes, and it was like Pelican Lakes on this date in 2 weeks. And I had this sign-up sheet. It was like this grid, and it had one part that said like, dollar amount per mile, and then the other one said like total donation. And I think like the idea was they didn't, like, I was just theorizing that they didn't want us to come back to their house, so they would just give us a total donation. And I was just like, they're like, well, what if someone writes us a check? I'm like, well, we have it, then make it up to this charity that doesn't exist that I just invented, or a nonprofit, and we just throw it away, and then we don't get that money. And they're like, all right, well, that sounds pretty good, Mike, let's do that. And so first, we put me in the wheelchair, but I'm the only one wearing the sweater, and I'm the fast talker and everything. And so like my friend that was pushing me in the wheelchair, like he seemed more handicapped than me because he was so stoned. So he's like doing the talking. He's like, yeah, we're doing a walkathon to make money for like wheelchair ping pong. And no one gave us any fucking money. People were immediately skeptical. They were like, yeah, so you're telling me that you assholes are raising money for wheelchair ping pong at your high school? Sure thing. So I'm like, all right, new plan. You just proved that people don't trust you as the talker. You sit in the chair. So then now I'm pushing the chair, I'm wearing the sweater, and I'm doing the talking. And it was great. The first house we went to, they were just like, oh, sure, that's great, man. And they gave us like, two $10 bills, and they're like, sorry, it's damp, we were ice skating. You guys are doing great, here's your donation. And so like we had them sign the sheet, like how much they donated and everything. And so we kept going around, and like everybody gave us $20. And then we got to where we had $200, and I was just like, we should get the fuck out of here now and just get a half ounce of weed. And so we did. But I remember like this list of all the people who gave us the donations and shit before I burned it in the backyard, because that was our primary evidence. I just labeled the list like people who bought it. And anyway, so that was the walkathon for the Windsor High Adaptive Sports Club. Why I'm going to hell, ladies and gentlemen.
Not even your high school.
Yeah. All right. So recently, well, not super recently, but we used to pacify people who would be dissatisfied with the condos they stayed in by giving them gift cards. And I thought that was kind of a silly way around, like, instead of just giving them like a future stay credit or money off their reservation, I thought it was kind of funny that we were giving them gift cards. So I like just, instead of Visa gift cards, which was the directive I was given, like I started just like buying gift cards, mostly to Olive Garden. And so like, it's like, oh yeah, I know, you're pissed. The hot tub doesn't work, and the heat doesn't work in one bedroom, so I can see you're dissatisfied with that. But you know what satisfies everybody? Breadsticks, unlimited ones. So how about $75 to fucking Olive Garden? Let's go. But actually, kind of funny, on the heels of that, they told us no more gift cards after a period of time. They're like, under no circumstances should you buy gift cards on your company card for anything at all. My friend who, yeah, speaking of mean nicknames in your phone, my friend who I had in my phone as Tard Strength, his name's Cole. He'll never watch this video, so it's okay. I'll drop it real quick. But he got fired for buying $3,200 worth of Visa gift cards over time, which I'm pretty sure he used to buy his new set of Titleist golf clubs. You know, that just led me to say things like, let's get gift carded in here, or this sweater, yeah, gift cardigan. But anyway, who doesn't like fucking breadsticks anyway? This opposing property management company, we had to get them a gift card because like there was this overlap, and our housekeepers they were taking our owner away, but we had guests, and then they had guests, and then we had guests. Anyway, we kept taking their sheets, and they were like a small company with like, it was just the dude and his wife. So he kept calling me, he's like, we need to be reimbursed for those sheets you took, or they need to come back. And I'm like, well, I have no idea where the fuck they went. They got mixed in with all our sheets, so you're not getting that. So the last time I paid him for it, I just sent him a Visa gift card. And on the envelope, I sent it to their P.O. box in Breck, and on the return address, I just wrote, Spider-Man, pictures of Spider-Man. Anyway, hope he got the money, or not, I don't give a fuck. So I used to think it was really funny to go through the McDonald's drive-thru. You know how they have the two windows? Yeah, so like, I guess it was like the early 2000s when they started having the two windows. But what you do is you pull up to the second, well, either of the windows, but you pull up and you don't order, and then you just get in line. And so when you get to the first window and they tell you how much it is, that's the price of the food you're about to receive, because that's the people in line behind you. And you just tell them, oh no, they forgot our large fry. And so they send you to the second window. And as the people behind you pay for their food, you receive their food, which you didn't know it was going to be. So it was always like a crapshoot. First time I ever did it, they're like, fillet of fish and an iced tea. I'm like, that's me. And anyways, I thought it was fucking hilarious because you always got like something different. In retrospect, thinking about how the drive-thru at McDonald's works, I realized what a fucking prick move it was, because when you do that, not only do you fuck up the person behind you's order, but then they get the food from the person behind them, and etc. And by the time they figure out what happened, you fucked up lunch. So, extra dick move. But we used to do it all the time, and like we started like being a little more mindful, or like, you know, sadistic in how we planned it. So we're like, oh look, car full of people with reflective vests, let's cut in front of them, they're gonna get a shitload of food. And you go to the first window and they're like, that'll be $45.78. Oh no, they just forgot our large fry. And we're like, I can't wait to see what the fuck we get here. And it would just be like we were the Norm and Chris Farley from Billy Madison, just eating the sandwiches from the kids and laughing. We were just eating McDonald's and fucking laughing. But the last night we did, or the last time we did it, we get up to the second window and we hear from the other side of the kitchen, they're like, it's those kids again, don't give it to them. And they had already like stuck it out the window, so I'm just grabbing it in my hand. I'm like, oh, I'll take that. And as we drove away, they were like, no! Anyway, that was a pretty good one. So, how do you know if there's a ski instructor behind you in line at the grocery store? He'll tell you. How do you know if there's a ski instructor at your kid's bar mitzvah? He'll also tell you. All right, how many ski patrollers does it take to change a light bulb? None, they just call maintenance. How many members of park crew? It takes 7. 1 to do a 3, 1 to do a 5, 1 to do a backflip, 1 to do a 900, 2 to sit on the snowmobile and smoke weed, and 1 to change the fucking light bulb. All right, thanks. That's all the ski industry jokes I have. But it kind of goes into the next bit, which is called Batman or Spider-Man. So way back in the day, when I was in lift ops training at Copper Mountain, they were telling us about catching people skiing with children's tickets. And I had just worked for Vail Resorts. And at Vail Resorts, when you scan a children's ticket, it beeps 5 times so they can make sure you're not a child or you are a child, right? So in training, my first question was, when you scan a children's ticket, does it beep differently? And they just said, no, Mike, but that's a good question. And I was like, well, fuck, I'm never bringing this up ever again. So flash forward to when I worked at the mine, I had an Epic Pass, but sometimes the easiest solution is to ride Copper. So what I had to do, which was weird for me at the time, but less weird for me as I got older, was I had to go in to where they give you the passes and pretend I had children, right? And when you have children and you get the 4 and under ticket for free, they would put their names on the ticket in case they got separated from their parents, right? So that way they could like call and be like, we have a, Cody here, or Trevor, or whatever. Those were a couple names I used. But mainly, so I remember one day we go down there and my buddy's outside the ticket office, the pass office, smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, all right, I'll be right back, man. I'll take care of this. And I go in, and I look at the girl behind the counter, and I'm just like, hey, I'm skiing with my 4-year-old and my friend's 3-year-old, and their names are Corey and Trevor. But they think they're Batman and Spider-Man. You think you could make me cooler than Mom and help me out with that? And I like winked at her. And she's like, oh, sure, absolutely. Let me take care of you. And so 5 minutes later while he's still smoking, I walk out with these 2 children's tickets and I'm like, hey, motherfucker, you want to be Batman or Spider-Man? So, this one is called Losing My Wife at the Rockies Game. So, once upon a time, before she was my wife, when we were still dating, it was about 12, 13 years ago, I met my wife down at Coors Field. I had been visiting my mom in Fort Collins, and she was coming down with my friends that lived in Leadville, and we were all meeting to go to the Rockies game. And per my usual strategy for the Rockies game, because I was terribly poor and needed to get incredibly drunk at the game, I snuck an entire 5th of George Dickel into the Rockies game by hiding it in a Ziploc bag tucked in the front of my pants, which worked really well, but an unforeseen side effect of hiding the whiskey next to your nuts is it gets really warm. And so nobody wanted to drink my 110 degree next to my nuts plastic bag whiskey with me. So unfortunately, I had to drink the entire 5th myself because it wasn't like I was gonna take it with me. So the game gets out, it's like dusk, and I can't even remember where I parked the fucking car. And so we get in my Jeep finally after we had to ask like a stranger to use their phone so we could like ask our friends where the fuck we parked because we had parted ways. I guess an interesting anecdote about this point was me and my wife shared a burner flip phone forever, so that was our one source of communication, which I think wasn't charged or some shit like that. Anyway, it's not important why the phone didn't work, but we called our friends, we figured out where the car was, and we get in the Jeep, and I'm driving like absolute dog shit because I'm super fucking hammered. And so we're arguing about my poor driving, and eventually she says to me, let me out of the car. And I was like, okay, I'll just drive around the block and come back and get her. However, in Lodo, there's a bunch of one-way streets. So when you're really drunk, just driving around the block isn't as simple as it might seem. So 10 minutes later, when I get back to where she got out of the car, she was gone. And she was the one with her phone. And all of a sudden, my priorities changed from where is my girlfriend to where the fuck is I-70? And I was lost as shit. I was like driving through the hood. I was asking like random people that look like gangsters on Colfax, like at stoplights. I'm like, yo man, where the fuck is I-70? And they're like looking at me like, he seriously doesn't know? But anyway, I finally, after wandering through the hood for hours, just every car that I saw pull up behind me, I was waiting for the red and blue lights, and they never came. But eventually I pulled into this gas station because I'd used like 3/4 of a tank of gas wandering around. And I asked the girl behind the counter, I'm like, hey, it's like 1 in the morning. Could you please tell me how to get to I-70? And she goes, sure, the on-ramp's over there. And it was right outside the station. So I got on I-70 at Evergreen fucking Parkway. I wandered through the hood from Lodo to Evergreen for, I guess, 3 hours. Anyway, I finally make it through the tunnel, but at this point I'm getting really drowsy from all the seat time in the car. So I thought it was a good idea to just pull over in the chain up area by Frisco and take a nap in my car with the flashers on. I literally woke up to the tow truck driver. Hey man, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm just taking a fucking nap. He's like, you're just taking a nap right fucking here? Well, genius, like, go hide behind Walmart or some shit. You can't talk to the police, I can smell you from here. And I was like, oh, yeah, good luck, dude, thanks. Just like got in my car and like swerved the fuck off down the road. So I finally get back to Leadville. It's like 4:30 in the morning, the sun's about to come up. And I literally was like, okay, we'll deal with this tomorrow. Surely my friends found my girlfriend. And so I wake up in the morning and I go over to their house because again, we shared a phone and she has it. So I go over and I say, hey, do you guys have my woman here? And they were like, nah, man, she called us, but she was too drunk to give us coherent directions. So we looked for her for like 2 hours, but we were drunk too, so we had to get the fuck out of Denver. And I was like, oh, well that's not the best news I've heard this morning. And so we're just waiting, chilling, you know. And all of a sudden my friend Dober's phone rings at like noon. And it's her. And she's like, put Mike on the phone now. And I was like, hey baby, how you doing? And she goes, I just got out of detox. Come get me now. And I'm like, where's detox? And she's like, I just slept in the lawn across from the library like a homeless person. Come get me there. And so I finally make it down and I get her. And then, you know, my friend who was terribly hungover too, her and him just sleep in the car. And it was my Jeep that always overheated, so I drove back down 285 because it could never handle like back-to-back 70 trips or whatever. But yeah, so just remember, when you're drunk in Denver, around the block isn't exactly just around the block. All right. What's invisible and smells like worms? Bird farts. All right. Yeah. I've been blacking out a lot lately, so I got a memory foam pillow.
Jesus.
It doesn't help me remember shit, but I am acutely aware of the position my fucking head was in when I passed out. The mailman in my neighborhood is fucking terrible. And I know this shit because I'm always finding my mail when I'm rummaging through my neighbor's mailbox. All right, a guy goes to a whorehouse, and like any sensible fellow, immediately he starts eating the hooker out. And so, after a couple seconds, he pulls out a pea from his mouth, and he's like, huh. And then a little bit later, because he went back to it after the pee, like any sensible person would do, he finds a piece of carrot. And he goes, oh man, honey, are you sick? And she's like, no, but the last guy was.
Oh, God.
So I'd like to remind you all that in 1804, Richard Trevithick invented the locomotive. Before then, we had to run wagons on your mom. So one time, I was registering for senior high school, and I had switched schools, so I was a junior, right? And I don't know if anybody else, when they were growing up, had the thing at your school where if you cut class, it would call your house, the automated joint. All right, well, I had that, right? So I'm waiting in line and I'm holding this form that I filled out, or my parents filled out, and it has this part on it that says phone number. And I'm like, there is no good reason for my school to need the phone number to the house I live at. That just doesn't make any sense and seems like trouble to me. So you know the B-52 song, 6060842? All right, I just put a 970 area code in front of it and used that. So I'm just having the best time. It's the first quarter. I haven't gone to any classes. The phone's not calling my house to inform my parents about my truancy. And then all of a sudden, the school calls. And what happened was, the number I picked was actually some people's phone number. And they didn't have children. So after getting a call every weekday for 45 consecutive days, they called the school pissed as shit. And so we had to have a come to Jesus moment where I divulged that that was not indeed our phone number, which they already knew, and had to start attending classes again, which is probably why I have 24 years of educational experience. I had to repeat 12th grade. All right, let's see here. What do we got here? So I used to steal a lot of bikes, mainly because I lived in Steamboat. And when you live in Steamboat and you go out drinking and you miss the last bus, it's a long 3-mile walk back to where your condo probably is from where the bars are. So the thing about stealing bikes is the ones that are unlocked aren't very good. So there's always something wrong with every one. I remember one night in particular, me and my 3 homies were all riding these bikes we had tactically acquired. And I'm riding it and I have my skateboard on the handlebars. And I'm like, my ride's pretty fucking good. How's yours ride? And my buddy Chewy's like, oh, mine ride's pretty smooth too, but the back brake drags. Sometimes it's stuck in granny gears. Other times the brake drags. There's always something wrong with a stolen bike. But the one night in particular that my friends told me about that I don't remember was I showed up at their house at 4 in the morning and I was too drunk to speak. And I did get out, they could tell that I wanted to show them something. And so I got out the word bike. And so they accompanied me down the stairs to the front of their apartment. And I had this ridiculous cruiser bike with ape hangers that were this tall and a cup holder on it. And they were like, hey Mike, that's a pretty cool bike, but you can barely reach the pedals. So whoever actually rides that, you probably don't want to get caught by them on their stolen bike. And I was like, oh. And so I just knowingly rode it through the parking lot and ghost rode it down the hill at the end of the parking lot, down the street. And the next day when I was going to work, someone had leaned it nicely against a tree. So I really hope it got back to its rightful owner. But I had this Frankenbike chop shop in Fort Collins on my back porch where we had put newspaper all over the place so we could spray paint them so they looked extra stolen. That's not what we thought at the time, but that's what spray painting a bike black and then misting it from a distance with neon green looks like. But I had this Frankenbike that had a road bike front wheel on the front and then a big chubby BMX bike rear tire, so it was all tilted back like a fucking ghetto chopper. And I was riding that thing and I went to into where I worked and tried to get a free burrito on my day off, and I was like, hey man, if we smoke a bowl, could I get a free burrito? And they were like, man, we don't know who's coming or whatever, we gotta wait. And I just took it as a no. So I went to this buffet, and it was a Chinese buffet, and I ate a bunch of food there, but then it wasn't very good. So I decided I was just gonna tell them I was smoking a cigarette and then flee on my bike. What I didn't know was the rear tire had gone flat. So as I came out the front running, after I didn't light a cigarette, I jump on this thing and start pedaling, and the guy's chasing me down the street. He's like, you pay now! And I made it like a block before the tube came out from under the tire and wrapped around the crank, and I just ditched it in the street and started running away. And I ran for like 3 blocks, but I just found this bike parked right by a mailbox. And that was actually the nicest bike I ever had. It was a Gary Fisher. It had front suspension. It was a very nice bike for 2004. And I rode that all over the place, and I gave it that sweet, paint job I was speaking of that had the black flat paint and then stood back and misted it from a distance. Anyway, that I kind of, I don't know what happened exactly. Like maybe I was fleeced or maybe the rightful owner got it back. But I was in the Waffle House using the payphone to call my friend and make sure I could get weed off him. And then when I came out, this crackhead-looking fellow had my bike flipped upside down, and he was looking at it with a flashlight. And he goes, "I can't read the serial number. Did you see who left this here?" I'm like, "No, I certainly didn't see who left this here." And he's like, "Yeah, they switched it up with the paint, but I could tell by the water bottle rack that this is mine." And like I said, I don't know if it was actually his bike or if he just stole my stolen bike from me. But since I indeed stole it, I was in I had no leg to stand on as far as protesting and be like, "Get out of here, crackhead, this isn't your bike." You know what I mean? Because it sure as fuck wasn't my bike either, so I didn't know. But yeah, stealing bikes. I don't know if you guys know this, but does everybody pay Xcel Energy a bunch of money at this time? Yeah? Got some big utility bills in Leadville? Woo! Yeah. All right, well, I don't know if they would like if I told you this, but they'll never shut off your electricity no matter how much you fucking owe them. I literally, I stopped paying them during COVID because of, a snafu where I couldn't log into my account. And, I saw the meter guy one day in my backyard, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, dog, are you here to shut off my electricity?" He goes, "Oh, no, man. Xcel makes too much money for that, and it's way too cold here, even in the summer, so we're not allowed to." I'm like, "Well, fuck, thanks for the tip." So, once I finally got sober, it was getting to be a pretty big bill, and I felt like I had this, amends to make, or this, thing to make up with the electric company. So I called to pay, because when you call, it gets you through all the hoops. You don't have to log in on their website. And so I actually have a video of me paying this bill. But it was $6,700. And the cool thing about having a $6,700 electric bill is fucking nothing. But literally, I did have the money to pay it because I've been saving a ton of money for not paying my electric bill for 3 fucking years. So it kind of worked out good. But yeah, just public service announcement. If you don't like paying it, you don't actually have to. I was kind of thinking should I let it get to 10 grand? It's like, what do you win if it goes to 10 grand? And I was like, I'm pretty sure you win getting taken to collections. So I fucking paid that shit, $6,700. Again, that seems like a lot of money until you realize it was from COVID to not that long ago. Next bit is, let's see. Yeah. Oh, this is a favorite of my friend Zach here, the host of Open Mic. This bit is called Garbage Liquor. So after I unfortunately got fired from Copper Mountain, I had to find work for a temp agency in Eagle Valley called Eagle Valley Temps. And the primary job that Eagle Valley Temps has on a regular basis is working at the Eagle County Mechanized Recycling Facility, or MRF. So the first job we had wasn't at the MRF, but we pulled up to this place, the Standard Service Station on the highway towards Minturn. I'm sure you all know it. And we were supposed to get the dirt that had mold on it up from under the floor joist. And all of a sudden a truck pulled up and it said, "Mold, Fire, and Restoration." And I'm like, I'm afraid of 2 of those things, and that's only because I don't know what the fuck restoration is. So we go down in the crawl space with these Tyvek jumpsuits on, and the two Mexican fellows put on respirators. And we have a plastic sled on a rope, some shovels, and some 5-gallon buckets. And so they like crawl way in there and start shoveling the dirt into the plastic sled, and we pull it across, empty it into the buckets, and dump it in the yard. And that was what it was like the whole day for $10 an hour. At that point, I started to question whether it was the right decision getting fired from Copper Mountain, where I made $9 an hour to ride go-karts. But at any rate, that was just the tip of the iceberg. So we go, the next job after that was at the Murph. So we go down there, and we enter the building, and immediately I was uncomfortable. Because to preface this joke, as I always do, when I was in kindergarten, I got diagnosed as being tactilely defensive because I didn't want to finger paint. I don't think I was really tactilely defensive. It was just 1990 in a very touchy-feely society, and they gave a name for everything. But I'd seen Bob Ross paint on TV with a brush. I'm just like, I don't really want to wash my hands because I'm 5 years old and I don't like to wash my hands. So give me the fucking brush. But at any rate, they diagnosed me as tactilely defensive, which means I don't like touching icky shit. So, needless to say, at the job where you sort recycling from garbage, there is some icky shit that you might be required to touch. So I was very uncomfortable at first. But on the first day, me and my friend Justin Dover were on pre-sort, which is before the glass crusher, which becomes an important anecdote here shortly. And he pulled a bottle of Smirnoff off the conveyor belt. I said, "What, you just drink liquor out of the garbage?" And he said, "Well, hey man, we're not animals. There's rules to this shit. 3 rules. First rule, does it smell like piss? Second rule, is it at least a third full? Okay, so there's 2 rules." Anyway, so at first, I was a little sketched out, but after drinking some garbage liquor, I immediately got less sketched out. It also bears mentioning that everybody who worked there that didn't work for the temp service or the city of Eagle was in jail. Which isn't that important, I guess, except for they didn't need any garbage liquor because they had to pass a breathalyzer to get back into jail. So they were always giving me all the extra stuff. I brought it home. But I literally, after a week of working there, I went from being like, ew, garbage, to just like, fuck this shit. Like wading through fucking waist-deep garbage, just looking for fucking extra liquor to drink. I was also making my own moonshine, which, for reference, if you're an alcoholic, don't make liquor as a hobby. It's a bad choice. But I was we had a 2-hour break, or we had a 10-minute break every 2 hours, and I would just go out to my car and guzzle moonshine and come back in. But there was this unique double entendre of fucking features where I went from being the newest employee to being the most senior employee in the course of a week. Because all the jail guys got caught smoking weed, so they got sent away, and my friend that introduced me to the job got a real job installing appliances. So they had this really interesting dynamic there where the dudes who worked for the city would be nice to one person and then treat everybody else like fucking shit. And per usual, I became that one person by being the most senior employee after a week. So I was just having the best time, drinking garbage liquor, throwing around recycling, throwing limes at the other side of the sorter. It was a really super great time. But that job turned me from the pussy I was to the non-garbage fearing badass that I am today. So, all right, the next bit is about siphoning gas. Woo! So when I was in high school, I lost my driver's license a bunch of times for underage drinking, and in Fort Collins, they take it away for a year after the 3rd time for each offense. So, according to that math, I still shouldn't have a driver's license at 40, but at any rate, I have one now, proud to say. But my friends got sick of giving me rides all the time because I was always broke because I spent all my money on weed. So I decided to fix it by literally teaching them to siphon gas. So I went to Home Depot and I got a gas can, and then I got a length of vinyl tubing, and me and my buddy that gave me the rides the most, I was like, all right, I'll show you how to do this. So we went and we pulled up next to a truck, and he had a low car, and we made sure it wasn't diesel, and we literally like siphoned the gas directly out of the truck into the tank of his Subaru. But yeah, it was pretty successful for a while, but one night, and this is just, through being told because I wasn't there, which was the problem, but after everybody was partying, they needed to get some gas. And so with like 8 people, which I've concluded by this story is too many to go stealing gas with, they go to get some gas in his Subaru. And literally they had so many people that like a stranger from the party bummed a ride from them, and they had no room in the front. It was a sedan one, and so they had someone riding in the trunk, which becomes important momentarily. So someone dropped the gas cap at some point, and this genius named Brett Godwin decided to flick his lighter to see where the gas cap was. I don't know if you've ever played with liquid gasoline in aerosol form because you've been sloshing it around. But that was a very bad choice. And so the whole Subaru caught on fire with 10-foot-high flames. My friend Clifford, who was like a big hero, he's on the wrestling team. I saw him fight full-grown men when we were in high school and knock them out. As the hero he was, he remembered the kid in the trunk. So he jumped into the car that was on fire and started it up and pulled it off the lake of burning gasoline. And then he opened the trunk, and as the legend goes, or at least the way I like to believe the legend, the kid that knew none of us ran the fuck off into the darkness, never to be seen again. Let's see. Yeah. All right, the next bit is about potato guns. One more. All right, got it. Yeah. All right, so anybody ever make the potato gun back in the day? Yeah, woo! Yeah, so I had a lot of combustion potato guns, but I stole this one that it was the pneumatic one from behind the shop at school. Like someone had made it as a launcher for like the medieval portion of like, the fair instead of a trebuchet. Anyway, I saw it sitting there, and I just saw this big air chamber and a short barrel on it, and I snuck over the fence and I stole it and I took it home, and they knew how dangerous it was, so they had immediately cut the valve stem from the tire that was glued into it so no one could use it because it was super dangerous. But when I got it home, I went on my favorite website, Backyard Ballistics, which literally had calculations for chamber to barrel size on potato guns. And after doing some math, I realized that I was missing a lot of velocity with my DD 4-foot barrel, and I needed indeed an 8-foot barrel. Sorry. So with the 8-foot barrel on it, it became 13 feet long. I named it 13 feet of potato death. And it would literally shoot a potato so it would fade like a golf ball and disintegrate in the air. But eventually just shooting it in the garage behind my house and putting dents in the wall got a little old, so we decided to shoot it outside at night. And inadvertently, even though we were trying to shoot it super flat, it curved up and broke this window 200 yards away of this house. This turned out to be an issue because later, outside in the backyard, it was 2 weeks later, we were going to shoot a TV a tube TV that my parents no longer needed. And, it was 2001, so it was the biggest Trinitron they made before you got a flat screen. And we're taking this thing out in the backyard, and me and my friend are just carrying it out of my parents' 5-bedroom house. And we see the neighbors whose window we accidentally shut out. And we're like, oh fuck, hide the potato gun, we gotta run away. But all they saw was the fact that 2 teenagers were carrying a TV, and when they saw us, we ran away. So they called the police to tell them that I was robbing my own house. So, flash forward, we decided to shoot the TV inside the 3-car garage behind my house. But in my infinite wisdom, I put it in a wheelbarrow by the only exterior door. So we shoot this fucking thing with an 800 feet per second Ore-Ida, and it doesn't break, but it does start making all these horrible like creaking and cracking sounds of the tube TV. And so we were afraid that it was going to explode, and it was by the door. So I'm climbing out the window, not thinking anything of it. I think I may have seen a stray flashlight or something like that. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna take a piss. So as I whip my dick out, I hear, we've got 2 at gunpoint. The cops used to hang out at the Arby's right at the Windsor exit. And so when they got the call that someone was robbing my parents' house, they sent everybody who was sitting there, which was like all of them. So when I looked around from taking my piss with my hands up, because they said, put your hands on your head, I saw that there was like 8 cops with AR-15s and 3 with regular like Glocks drawn on me. And I was like, hey gentlemen, you think you have enough firepower for my 1-inch cock right now? And so they like detain us in front of the house. And even though my driver's license has the same address on it, since I'm not 18 years old yet, they wouldn't let me, or I was 18, but they wouldn't let me go. So they literally held me in handcuffs in front of my parents' house in our like country club neighborhood with 8 cop cars in the fucking driveway for 30 minutes until my parents got home for dinner. And yeah, my dad used to drink martinis at dinner, so he was like 4 deep, and he just gets out and he goes, hey gentlemen, you think we have enough force here? And I'm like, that's what I was saying about my 1-inch cock. Anyway, they proceeded to finally let me go, and I got like an underage drinking ticket again. Yeah, that was 8 fucking cops, the better part of a SWAT team, for my 1-inch white cock. All right, thank you, Leadville. Good night.
Awesome as always. Everybody give it up for Mike Ham. Local, very funny. All right.